Hello. Hello. So I'm about to embark on a new uh, video here. And, well, we're going to see Jay Inslee's press conference here in about 20 minutes, it looks like. Jay Inslee's press conference is on this website, tw.org. So hopefully that will be commenced, rather soon. Anyway, so we're just kind of waiting for that. I'll be waiting and chilling here, trying to see if this works. If my mom sees me right now, hi mom, thinking about you, and grandma. Grandma's in the hospital right now. She doesn't have the virus, but she's just sick, pretty sick. So she needs some loving, some help. So hopefully we get to see her soon. There's no one allowed inside of the place at all. So that's pretty frustrating for my mom and grandpa and all the rest of the family. So hopefully that comes around to be something a little bit different. Anyway, we're just waiting on this live stream to start. If you want to, you can chat with me on there. It should pop up on my screen up here. Hang on one second. I'm just checking things out. This is my first live stream on YouTube. My second one. I did a test run earlier. You can actually see that on my YouTube channel as well. Anyway, I am going to, let's see here. Let's see what we can do. I'm trying to change this, try to get this chat box working so that we can see what our chats are. All right, hang on one second. I'm going to just figure this out. Okay. There we go. There's chat. So if you want to chat, we are able to chat. Okay, so chat if you will. All right. So there it is. There's the white box there. It'll show some chatting. Yeah, so Inslee had stated in a previous press conference that he does not have, or he would not give details as to how we were going to transition into bringing the economy back into fruition here in Washington State. So, as you can see up here, sorry, up here, stay-at-home order is scheduled to lift in 3 days, 9 hours, and 47 minutes, and some odd seconds. So hopefully we'll be able to see something a little different. I know a couple people. I know a lot of people want the economy back in going and being strong because they miss their restaurants, they miss going to their favorite businesses, they miss buying the things that they want to buy from those businesses. I think really it's mainly they just miss hanging out with people. I know bars and restaurants are like, the place where a lot of people just hang out. And so it's hard to, hang out without that medium still going on. I think we're making do though. I think a lot of people have kind of acclimated a little bit to this. Some of us are going stir crazy a bit. I know I've gone stir crazy at times. My girlfriend's really mad at me in certain times, but for the most part, though, I feel like we've acclimated. We've really acclimated to this thing. So, um, but yeah, so Inslee had stated that it would be a phase-in process. There was quite a few phases to take into consideration. So I know that he had lifted previously. There was no fishing, or no. All the campgrounds were closed. All the state parks were closed. In fact, all the parks were really closed. But so we're still able to hang out at some of these parks. Me and Susan, my girlfriend, we've gone to these parks and have hung out there several times. It's been fine. You can't use the bathroom. The bathroom's closed. There's that. So that kind of stinks. So you have to kind of make do. And also, you can't. The trash cans, even the trash cans. So we bring our dog a lot of times to these parks, and we would bring our dog, and the dog would have a great time, and we'd have a great time, and all of a sudden our dog's, got to go number two. Got to go number two. Dog's got to go number two sometimes. So dog goes number two. We usually have our stuff, our bags. My girlfriend usually packs the bags with or our backpack with tons of bags, just tons of them. Anyway, she takes these bags, and then we scoop up the number two, the poop, and then we take it over to the trash can. Well, there's no trash cans, so what do? So we would just take it with us and make sure that it was in a very sealable container so that there's no stink. And then we take it home. But so that's kind of frustrating. And there's also trash along in the parks. There's going to be a lot of trash cleanup, because of it being so long, that it's been closed for so long. The other part was fishing and hunting. Fishing and hunting was considered to be banned. There were several reasons for that. I can't remember exactly what those were, but I know a lot of people do not like that. I saw that all over the internet. There was tons of people that, love their fishing and their hunting. It's a huge part of their, mental process. They gotta have an outlet, and if you take away the one outlet that they go to, one of my outlets was taken away. Well, a couple of them, but one of them was golf. Golf was taken away from me. I'm not able to golf at golf courses. I guess I could set up my own little golf thing here at home, with a projector and, simulate the golf experience. But that's not exactly real golf. So it was a bummer, a big bummer. But I think that I made do, We have to sacrifice. Everybody's got to sacrifice a little bit. It's not a terrible ordeal. I think we can get through it. Now, a lot of people are pretty upset at Governor Inslee. He's taken a pretty hardline stance when it comes to the stay-at-home order. He had a lot of restrictions, a lot of things that you could not do. I remember when the bars and restaurants were closed. It kind of came as a shock. I just remember everybody going, "What? This is so weird." But it happened, and but people made do. People made do. But yeah, it was a real shock. And then after a while, I think people just we started ordering food from different restaurants because we did not want to see these restaurants lose all their business, and hopefully we can get something in place to where some of these restaurants would be able to get back to normal in a sense. There's not going to be a normal and the way we used to think anymore. I think a lot of people think that that's going to be the way they're going to get right back to normal. You go to your favorite bar, your favorite restaurant, and you're going to be able to talk with people the same way and hang out the same way. I'm sorry, that is not. All of the states that have reopened their economy have placed these restrictions in the states, and those restrictions, are good in my opinion. I think they're very good, but the restrictions are like 50% of your normal business, or the amount of people that you're allowed to let in. You got to reduce that by 50%. I don't know about you, but that's going to create, if you've been to restaurants where you've had to wait outside for a while, that's going to be twice as bad, and it's going to be twice as long. But so there's going to be that. If you go to your favorite bar and you want to sit down next to your buddy, there's going to be restrictions on that. You have to still be 6 feet apart. So bar stools that were right next to each other got to be separated. You can only have a certain amount of people sitting at a certain table. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to have 20 people all in one table if you have a big group. So we're not going to be able to do a lot of the same things we've been doing before, and that's going to be very frustrating when we reopen the economy. Or reopen the economy, as if I don't know. I hate saying that phrase, as if the economy is all about business, when the economy a lot of times is about how government works and how people interact with each other. And the result of that is business, and how money gets distributed and how money gets put into people's hands. So, well, hopefully we see some good things from Governor Inslee. So I think that here's my guess. My guess is that bars and restaurants will still not be open until they have proven that they have that strategic plan in place. Okay. And also, I don't think that they'll be open until we have a significant amount more testing being done in the areas in which you need to have, or you want these businesses to be open. So here in Spokane, there needs to be tons of testing being, tons more testing going on. And we just, I think we stepped down the testing. I can't remember exactly if we stepped down the testing or not, but if that's the case, then we're not in a very good place, to be able to reopen that. But hopefully that is not too much the case. But we'll see what happens. What I am, thinking that might happen will be that maybe some government agencies will become open. My girlfriend works for Spokane County Libraries, and she's thinking that they might become open, but maybe not. I'm not quite certain. I'm not quite certain if that's going to be the case. I think if schools remain closed, which I don't think schools are going to become open, I think they're going to be done for the entire year. I think that's going to come out today too. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see. But if schools remains closed, I don't think libraries will remain open. I think the libraries will follow suit with the schools. I don't know. I don't know how it all works. She might know a little more than me. If you're just joining us, we're waiting for Jay Inslee to speak. We're going to talk about. We're going to watch his press conference here in just a few minutes. I think we got 7 minutes to go before that happens, and he's going to be saying quite a few things about how we need to proceed in either reopening the economy, or he's going to give us a detailed plan about how we reopen this economy. So as we're waiting for that, I do have a chat feature here that is in my window. If you want to say hi or say something, you can. Maybe somebody wants to say something, maybe. Yeah, let me know. Give me a comment. Give me a shout out. Say something to me. Say something to me. Okay. Oh, that changed. I changed the chat box. Oh boy, that's not what I wanted to do. I am still learning how to do this thing. I'm still learning, so bear with me. Bear with me. Okay. So, if you'd like to know what maybe you want to say something about what's... Oh, hi, Garth Ward. When should people consider suing the state? Well, I think what should you sue the state over, Garth? What do you think? Is that something we should be doing? Should we be suing the state? All right, I'm just trying to leave a chat thing. Well, Garth, Garth says shutting the state down longer than was told to businesses and people. Well, Garth, I don't know about that. I'm of the opinion that we probably should have taken, that we've done it correctly, and that's why we have such low numbers, and why the flattening of the curve has happened. So, it looks like we're going to start up here soon with the press conference. So. That do. Well, Garth, yeah. So it was the initial shutdown was to flatten the curve, which was achieved weeks ago. But that doesn't mean that people won't get it back if we just throw people back out there, right? I think there needs to be certain plans in place. I don't think that's ambiguous at all. This is not ambiguous at all. This is done by doctors and science. This is serious stuff. Uh-oh, there was a problem playing the video. Come on. Oh, no. Come on, Jay. Get it together here. Okay, here we go. So it's coming up. Hopefully we have some good audio. I know last time they had this audio, it wasn't very loud. It wasn't very good, but I got an adjustment to make it louder. So, yeah. Why not follow federal phase plans made by doctors and science then? Well, what does Dr. Fauci say? Anyway, there you go. If you're just joining us, we're about ready to hear from Governor Jay Inslee about what's going to happen next with the state of our economy and how we're going to proceed in opening it back up if that is the case. I wanted to say, Mom, if you're watching, or Grandma, Grandpa, if you're watching, I love you. I love you dearly. And I was saddened to say that my grandma is in the hospital. She lives in Kennewick, Washington. And it's Benton County has actually gotten a lot of cases, a lot more cases per capita than Spokane has. And also, Benton County has more deaths than we do in Spokane. So that's an interesting thing that's happening. And so the hospital that she's staying at does not allow anybody whatsoever to come into the hospital. If you're not a patient, you don't get to go in. So it's really hard on the family at the moment. So I wanted to say I love you, Grandma. I love you, Grandpa. I love you, family. I love you, Mom. Hang in there, and hopefully she comes out of this the better. It's hard to not be able to speak with her or talk with her during this problem. So anyway, we're still waiting for Inslee to speak, and that should be happening relatively soon here. Okay. Should be in phase 2 by now if you look at our state statistics. Well, I don't know about that. I guess I don't have all the information popped up for the phase 2 transition at the moment, Mr. Ward, but we'll see. Okay, maybe somebody else wants to talk to Garth about this. Somebody else wants to chime in. Hey, Garth, have you lived here in Spokane for a while? Do you live here in Spokane, or are you outside of Spokane? So we're still waiting on the press conference here. Hopefully this will come up very shortly. We've got, now we're 2 minutes over time, but as we all know from the federal press conferences, sometimes it takes quite a while for it to commensurate. So we're still waiting on that. We're still waiting. Yeah, so there's been I don't know if anybody's ever gone to the store and tried to figure out, what they need, and they get there, and lo and behold, there's, nothing, nothing. I mean, it's just crazy how, you walk down Winco, down the toilet paper and paper towel aisle, and it's just completely empty shelves every week, every day, every day. Can't be filled enough. And from what I learned, that had nothing to do with how many people were taking stuff. It had more to do with supply chains and how there's tons of paper towels and toilet paper out there that is not being utilized, and it doesn't get sold to retail stores. And the reason why is because okay. Oh boy. We got problems with the video. Anyway, the reason why these places are so not filled with stuff is not just because people are taking them, but because they don't normally get. Okay, I think we're starting up here. Here's Jay Inslee. Oh, maybe not. Okay, we're still waiting. We're still waiting. How ridiculous. Okay. Oh boy. The website is not doing so well. Maybe I can get a feed through. Let's see here, Governor. One month ago. No. Okay, so we're still waiting. Sheesh. Lots of errors. Okay. Garth says, I follow the plan. Phase 1 should have been in effect right when announced, and been 2 weeks, would have progressed by now. I'm in King County, where hospitals are empty and doctors are totally empty. Doctors are empty? Hospitals are empty, huh? How are the hospitals empty? Completely empty? Have you walked in there? Did you see that they were empty? Aha, and we have it.
Outset rec.
Well, this is frustrating.
Not one fight again. That is why I'm spending. I'd like to tell you.
Oh, this is frustrating. I apologize. I do not believe this should be happening like this. I think they're having major issues. We're going to see if we got a different feed somewhere else. I'm not sure. This is from his Facebook page. Huh. Well, let's see if this works. Hopefully it does. But this is not very cool. Okay, we're going to close that one. I think the Facebook feed is actually working better. Okay, we're still working. We're still working on this. Right? I know. So we'll see when it is, and I'll update it. A wheat loaf, I'll update it once it gets going, or once we hear what the deal is. I think he's been talking for a while, and so this is when it finally hits. It's going to not be. Oh wait, there it is. Okay, I'm behind. So we'll start from the beginning. Okay. His actual website crashed.
Good afternoon. Starting our careful process while we are remaining steadfast. Monday, I will issue extension.
Extension.
Allow us to dial. Washington businesses open in several smaller counties. Not been so hard by COVID-19 variants. Got to just outset recognize not one fight against. Today's order will many businesses. That is why I'm extending the. I'd like to tell you
May 31st. Wow.
not monitor, assess the basis, adapt as the new normal is not here. Some good This morning I met with Department of Health team, Packard modelers, modeling. Morning told me the evidence that we are suppressing COVID-19 rates in central Puget Sound. Doing is working, so distancing.
Ah, it just refreshed on me. Okay, looks like I'm gonna try to pick up where we left off here.
On the data at our disposal, current order of effect. We'll have more detail Friday, phased approach, how we will.
Oh, this is from the previous day. Oh my goodness. Oh, if we only had some real.
An important part of this. Want our
This is from the previous day. I don't know why they did that.
on a way to both or not.
Oh my goodness. This is so frustrating. Okay, here we
More
go.
strict, they can put in place more strict restrictions for their jurisdiction, even more restrictive than those in our state Stay Home and Stay Healthy initiative. That is up to their local decision-making for public needs, local conditions.
I'll try to go back to.
Now, I'd like to describe these that are not allowed in Phase 1. Even more important now about the individual commitment and socially distance. Our office has received several reports of individuals engaged in large outdoor activities, emptying and access to parks. So we are now and will be working with the industries to have protocols available, including the use of personal protective equipment in a number of industries that are affected. This includes modifications we have made in the last week around construction activities and selected outdoor activities, such as fishing, hunting, and access to parks. So we are now and will be working with the industries to have protocols available to them by mid-May that will allow retail curbside pickup operations, automobile sales, and car washes. It will be with restrictions. It would allow also drive-in spiritual services, one household per vehicle. More outdoor activities will start next week. But I do want to reiterate this, and this is a theme of going forward for the next several months. We still have a ban on large gatherings, even gatherings where participants might think they can socially distance. Our office has received several reports of individuals engaged in large outdoor activities and events that are just too dangerous. And I just want to say at this outset, we are now moving forward to another phase of this mission for the state of Washington. And it is even more important now about the individual commitment of Washingtonians to help their community thrive. And it's the individual decisions that all of us will be making in the next weeks and months to come that is really going to determine whether we succeed to prevent huge fatalities in our state. I feel confident about that because Washingtonians have been doing a great job already, but we're going to need to keep it up for some period of time. So phase 2 will allow additional expansions of outdoor recreation activities that are not allowed in phase 1, including camping. Small gatherings of 5 people socially or less could return. I know that will be welcome, as well as new construction and in-store retail purchases. All of these, of course, with appropriate health restrictions. Barbershops and salons then be able to reopen. Restaurants will reopen with 50% capacity, a table size no larger than 5. Some professional services and offices could open as well, even though telemarketing will remain strongly encouraged. Pet care services, including grooming, could resume. And again, individuals and businesses still need to follow all of the safety and health guidelines that we will work with industries and business leaders and working people to make sure we do this in a smart, safe, and healthy way. So phase 3, this would expand more gatherings to 50 people or less, including sports activities, and would resume non-essential travel. Restaurants would move up to 75%, bars at 25% capacity. Gyms and movie theaters could reopen at 50% capacity. Retail, libraries, museums, and government buildings reopen. Recreational facilities like pools could open at 50% capacity. Nightclubs and entertainment venues will need to wait for the next phase, which is, of course, phase 4. So phase 4 is going to involve resuming the majority of public interactions. Gatherings of more than 50 people will be allowed, but still while practicing social distancing. Now, I have said that our return to normal will still not look the way they did before this virus hit us until we have pharmaceutical interventions such as a vaccine. No one knows when that is going to happen. But it would mean bars, restaurants, and entertainment venues could return to allow the maximum license capacity of venues. We could resume unrestricted staffing of work sites, with the exception, again, with physical distancing should remain in place. I also want to note that while we're going through these phases, cities and county jurisdictions, by law, can take they can put in place more strict restrictions for their jurisdiction, even more restrictive than those in our state Stay Home and Stay Healthy initiative. That is up to their local decision-making for public needs, local conditions. Now, I'd like to describe the conditions that will guide us when we decide when it is right to move from one phase to another. The data on public health information will determine when we move from one phase to another. And so I'd like to discuss those dials, if I may. What you see before you is a selection of what we call the dials that will judge when we can make these decisions. The first dial basically is the infection disease status itself, and that is obviously the most important of the metrics that we will look at. And under that metric, we have numerous pieces of information. We make our decisions based on dozens of data points in determining the status of the virus. We look at, just for instance, we look at the hospital rates of hospitalization per day with people with COVID-like illness. We look at the deaths per day, obviously. We look at the long-term care facilities, how they've been impacted with COVID. We look at the models, just one of which I showed you today. We look at several models that project where we're going in the immediate future. We look at the percentage of positive tests. And I just wanted to show you, just to get a flavor of the wealth of data we have. The chart we have up on the screen right now is a screenshot 12 graphs amongst many that we look at. These are all available on our website to look at the specific data. Second thing we look at, and of course I'm looking at, if I can see this, if you can bring this closer, Sam, because, well, here we go, we got this right. The second is the testing capacity and availability. Now, this is critical to our efforts because we are making a shift in strategies. We're moving from the dull instrument of social distancing as our primary weapon against this virus to depending on testing capacity to find people who are affected by this virus, then move to find a way to take care of them and to isolate them. Central to that is our testing capability. As you know, this has been way more limited than we would want. We've been limited to be doing maybe 4,000 tests a day. We want to get several times that to be able to make sure everyone who needs a test can get a test very quickly. We hope that that will ramp up shortly. We have been promised, for instance, 1 million swabs that are used in this test by the federal government. We hope that that promise will be fulfilled so we can increase our testing. But that dial needs to be much higher than it is today for us to be able to move into the next phase, this battle. The next dial we look at is our case and contact investigation capability. After we test for a person, we'll need to investigate their contacts to see if people they have contacted need a test, and make sure that we isolate the people that in fact are tested positive so they do not transmit the disease. This is going to take a small army to do all this work. It's very labor intensive because we have today about 200 infections a day that we have to be able to trace all the people they met. We have to get that army built up. It's our intention to have about 1,500 people by mid-May involved in that in the state of Washington. Third issue is our risk to vulnerable populations. You need to be attentive that we're caring for those who are most vulnerable. Our long-term care facilities, our working people that work in very difficult situations. That has led to some inequities in the distribution of this disease. We need to be addressing those inequities to protect all of our people, not some. And the last dial is our healthcare system readiness. We have to make sure that our healthcare is ready for the job in the event that we saw an increase in this disease. And that includes the need to have PPE, personal protection equipment, not just for our healthcare workers, for people in many industries that are today working in difficult circumstances. So we will be looking at all of these metrics and making a judgment on a regular basis to determine whether we can move to the next phase. It will be based on numbers, metrics, and the scope of this virus and how far we have turned these dials. Now, none of these dials are in the safety zone right now. All of them will have to be significantly improved in the next month or so and going forward as well. So we'll have 3 weeks at least between phases also to allow us to evaluate whether what we've done has worked or not, or whether it's increased danger. That is the minimum time period before phases. Maybe much more than 3 weeks, given the nature of this disease. I also want to say that we have all been mindful of the regional differences and impacts that we've seen across the state with regard to COVID-19 and our response. We know that not every part of our state has been hit equally hard by this disease. Therefore, some counties with lower numbers of cases and deaths, as well as they have enough PPE in hospitals, we're going to allow them to explore possibilities moving sooner to phase 2. The 10 counties that would be eligible have extremely low number of cases. Their combined populations represent less than 3% of the state. So these are the counties that will be able to move sooner given certain conditions. Columbia, Garfield, Jefferson, Lincoln, Ponderay, Skamania, Wahkiakum, Kittitas Ferry, and Grays Harbor. So if these counties, in partnership with their local health jurisdictions, can find ways to open up certain sectors that prove effective, then they can move earlier to the next phase, too. What we learn from those counties can help larger counties learn as well. So these counties will have a high bar to meet, but if they can get there, they can go forward with. In the next 2 weeks, the Department of Health and my office will consider additional criteria that could potentially allow other counties to apply for a variance. So we're going to continue to look at the data as we have. We're going to make adjustments accordingly. We're going to monitor and adapt, be agile and aggressive against this virus. Again, all of the metrics we rely on are available to the public. Our COVID-19 risk assessment dashboard you can find at coronavirus.wa.gov, coronavirus.wa.gov. I think that's important because virtually everything we look at is available to the public. I want to be totally transparent with you as we make these very difficult. Hospital rates of hospitalization per day with people with COVID-like illness. We look at the deaths per day, obviously. We look at the long-term care facilities and how they've been impacted with COVID. We look at the models, just one of which I showed you today. We look at several models that project where we're going in the immediate future. We look at the percentage of positive tests. And I just wanted to show you, just to get a flavor of the wealth of data we have. The chart we have up on the screen right now is a screenshot of 12 graphs amongst many that we look at. And these are all available on our website to look at the specific data. Second thing we look at, and of course I'm looking at, if I can see this, if you can bring this closer, Sam, because, oh, here we go. We got this right behind me, I think. We'll have in just a moment. The second is the testing capacity and availability. Now, this is critical to our efforts because we are making a shift in strategies. We're moving from the dull instrument of social distancing as our primary weapon against this virus to depending on testing capacity to find people who are affected by this virus, and then move to find a way to take care of them and to isolate them. And central to that is our testing capability. As you know, this has been way more limited than we would want. We've been limited to be doing maybe 4,000 tests a day. We want to get several times that to be able to make sure everyone who needs a test can get a test very quickly. We hope that that will ramp up shortly. We have been promised, for instance, 1 million swabs that are used in this test by the federal government. We hope that that promise will be fulfilled so we can increase our testing. But that dial needs to be much higher than it is today for us to be able to move into the next phase of this battle. The next dial we look at is our case and contact investigation capability. After we test for a person, we'll need to investigate their contacts to see if people they have contacted need a test and make sure that we isolate the people that in fact are tested positive so they do not transmit the disease.
Okay,
and this is going to take a small army to do all this work. It's very labor intensive because we have today about 200 infections a day that we have to be able to trace all the people they met. So we have to get that army built up. It is our intention to have about 1,500 people by mid-May involved in that in the state of Washington. The third issue is our risk to vulnerable populations. We need to be attentive that we're caring for those who are most vulnerable in our long-term care facilities, our working people that work in very difficult situations that has led to some inequities in the distribution of this disease. We need to be addressing those inequities to protect all of our people, not just some. And the last dial is our healthcare system readiness We have to make sure that our healthcare is ready for the job in the event that we saw an increase in this disease. And that includes the need to have PPE, personal protection equipment, not just for our healthcare workers, for people in many industries that are today working in difficult circumstances. So we will be looking at all of these metrics and making a judgment on a regular basis to determine whether we can move to the next phase. It will be based on numbers, metrics, and the scope of this virus and how far we have turned these dials. Now, none of these dials are in the safety zone right now. All of them will have to be significantly improved in the next month or so and going forward as well. So we'll have 3 weeks at least between phases also to allow us to evaluate whether what we've done has worked or not, or whether it's increased a danger. So that is the minimum time period before phases. And it may be much more than 3 weeks given the nature of this disease. I also want to say that we have all been mindful of the regional differences and impacts that we've seen across the state with regard to the COVID-19 and our response. We know that not every part of our state has been hit equally hard by this disease. Therefore, some counties with lower numbers of cases and deaths, as well as if they have enough PPE and hospital capacity, we're going to allow them to explore possibilities moving sooner to phase 2. The 10 counties that would be eligible have extremely low number of cases, and their combined populations represent less than 3% of our state. So these are the counties that will be able to move sooner given certain conditions: Columbia, Garfield, Jefferson, Lincoln, Ponderay, Skamania, Wahkiakum, Kittitas, Ferry, and Grays Harbor. So if these counties, in partnership with their local health jurisdictions, can find ways to open up certain sectors that prove effective, then they can move earlier to the next phase, phase 2. And what we learn from those counties can help larger counties learn as well. So these counties will have a high bar to meet, but if they can get there, they can go forward with local plans. And in the next 2 weeks, the Department of Health and my office will consider additional criteria that could potentially allow other counties to apply for a variance. So we're going to continue to look at the data as we have. We're going to make adjustments accordingly. We're going to monitor and adapt. We're going to be agile and aggressive against this virus. Again, all of the metrics we rely on are available to the public. Our COVID-19 risk assessment dashboard, you can find at coronavirus.wa.gov, coronavirus.wa.gov. I think that's important because virtually everything we look at is available to the public. We want to be totally transparent with you as we make these very difficult decisions for our state. So we know that reopening areas with more densely populated areas will be more difficult. So we're going to continue to monitor these matters. I just want to head to some closing comments by saying that it's gratifying, and we have a lot to be proud of in Washington. Washingtonians have been hugely committed to the Stay Home, Stay Healthy initiative. And as a result of that, Washingtonians have allowed us to have this early success. But this remains a very precarious situation, and we cannot be lulled into some sense of relief or thinking that we're out of the woods. We're sort of like that mistaken skydiver who jumped out of the airplane with his parachute, and the parachute worked really, really well, and it slowed the rate of his descent. And he was so happy about it, the success of that parachute, that he thought he could just cut the straps and things would turn out okay. Well, we have been successful to date in slowing progress of this disease. But if we cut the straps right now, we're going to have a really, really bad result hitting the ground. Because the epidemiologists tell us very clearly, this is just going to jump right back up and bite us if we do not continue efforts that are significant and aggressive in our state.
Agreed.
I know there's many aspects to this crisis, and its disruptions have taken a toll on mental health as well. I do want you to know, if you feel alone in this struggle, I hope you'll thinking about it, that you're not. And I want you to help yourself if you need that, or your loved ones. Go to coronavirus.wa.gov. There's a way to seek some help if you're having some challenges bearing up under this stress. Don't be shy about that. This is a tough thing we're going through. We want you to take care of yourself. Just don't wash your hands. Take care of how you're feeling too. Lastly, if you're looking for a way to support our essential workers, you can participate in Lieutenant Governor Cyrus Habib's Washington Mask Challenge. If you have homemade cloth masks to donate to an organization in need, we'd encourage you to go to www.wamaskchallenge.org, www.wamaskchallenge.org, and the Lieutenant Governor's office will connect you with the organization closest to you. And if you're one of those organizations in need of cloth masks, please connect with the Lieutenant Governor, who's shown real leadership in this regard. So with that, I'll be very happy to stand for your questions.
Moving into students, and as it relates to smaller about this process.
Yes, the testing, I wish I could give you just one simple number, but the honest answer is it's going to vary depending on the status of the disease when we get to the place to really make these decisions about when to move these phases. Right now, the situation is we can do about 4,000 tests a day with the very limited number of test kits we have. We have analytical capability. We have enough analysis machines to do about 20,000 tests a day. I can tell you today, I certainly would like to be able to do 20,000 tests today and have the test kits to be able to do that. There's a fair chance we will be able to get there in the next month or so, or even earlier than that, if the federal government fulfills its commitment to us to get us a million test kits that they said that they will provide us fairly shortly. But that's certainly a level I think we would need to be in the short term. However, that number will increase as we move forward throughout these steps, and that's counterintuitive. You'd think as things got better, you'd need less tests. In fact, we need more, because as people return to work, we are going to want to test them, many of them, particularly if there's any indication of the virus in a company. We're going to want to test people all around that individual. And there's no reason not to do that except the lack of testing capacity. So the need will grow significantly above that 20,000 over time. And the amount we end up needing will depend on the extent of the virus and how fast we can bring people back. Your second question, Rachel, I got to start writing these down. The criteria for the counties. So the process will be that the local health department will need to make a decision whether they would like to move to the next stage, stage 2. If they decide they would like to do that, they'll forward their recommendation to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners then will make a decision whether they would like to move to stage 2. They will submit some plans to the Department of Health. They'll need to show that they have a good surge capacity in the hospitals and have good PPE. And if those things are in place, then those 10 counties will be able to move forward.
Good afternoon, Governor. As you know, and you may be able to hear behind me, there are folks who are talking about June.
No, look, the vast majority of Washingtonians don't want to see their relatives die of the COVID virus. The vast number of Washingtonians accept that this is a community interest that we have and we're all working together. And the vast majority of Washingtonians understand that if we stick together for a while longer, we won't lose all the gains that we've already made. And they understand that this has been painful. Look, I understand the frustrations that we all have shared. It's so frustrating that we don't want to do this twice. This is bad enough once. We should not take the risk to do this twice. And we have to make decisions based on hard-headed data and science and not wishes when it comes to life itself. And the hard-headed science tells us that we've got one decision to make here if we're going to continue on the road to recovery. And that's doing what we're doing. Make a cautious return of our businesses that we have set forth. We have already allowed the reopening of construction and hunting and golf. We've allowed the reopening of elective surgery. We're moving forward with some restricted matters as soon as in the next couple of weeks so that we can move forward on those protocols that we had. So we are making progress. We are opening businesses today. And this is a very rational approach moving forward. And that's how we have to make decisions. Well, yes, the 10 that we're accepting a request, should they want to make it, are extremely low rates of infection that are quite unique. They're also relatively small counties, and that was important as well, so that we don't want to take risks if something goes wrong. We're going to use them as barometers as to how this works, actually. And as I've said, in a couple of weeks, we'll evaluate this to see whether it makes sense to allow further requests from other counties as well. And again, we'll be driven by data to see what the situation looks like at that time. But I do want to note that these 10 counties are quite different from others in several respects. Yes. On your first question, as far as the timeline, this is something, as soon as we hear from the counties, it's just a matter of days
So
to
hard to hear the
turnaround time to get an
question.
answer
I
back to
didn't
them.
know what really she asked.
I actually think that these counties will find broad acceptance by the Department of Health because we've already sort of pre-screened them, if you will. So I don't think that's going to be a long period at all. As far as stage one, what we said is that the businesses we talked about being in stage one today, the new businesses, will essentially, we just need protocols so that they can return safely. And we want to do with them what we did with the construction industry, very successfully working with business leaders or builders and the laborers. And that should be done by May 15th. And I don't see any reason that it would not be. Sam, could you give me the chart? Give me a chart, that hard copy for me.
Sure. Governor Harris, what if you could just outline the calendar? We're talking about 3 weeks. Essentially take us mid-July.
steps.
Proclamation.
You know, I'm really sorry. I had to talk to my pal here for a second. Could you repeat that?
Calendar. Wondering if you anticipate, because of that, having to end because it looks like weeks between phases. Why?
Well, I think if you do the math, it tends to get to that for the essentially, you know, large gatherings, to move all the restrictions on gatherings of 50,000 people. That's a realistic.
Okay, so these are just questions. I'm kind of at a loss for what happened. I think just as we were about to hear what was going to happen. We heard. I know we heard that he extended the order to May 31st. That's what we heard. Then the feed cut out. Then I was trying to reconnect everywhere. And then I think it cut back in. So it cut off a bunch of it there. And I think it was vital stuff that was cut off. So I'm going to rewind. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And I'm going to see if that, if it picks up where we left off. So I'm going to do that. I'll just go through it just for a minute, and we'll see what it is here. Okay.
Ready? Good afternoon.
Okay, so that's the very beginning. So this is a full recorded video. Okay, so we got to the point. Yeah, all right. We'll just let it play through from now on. Okay.
Today, I'm pleased to say that we are starting our careful, phased, science and data-driven process to reopen Washington's economy, while we are remaining absolutely steadfast in our commitment to the health of Washingtonians. On Monday, I will issue a new extension of our Stay Home, Stay Healthy order. And this will allow us to take some initial immediate steps to begin reopening. We're turning the dial. Washington businesses will reopen in 4 phases, which I'll discuss today. And in addition, several smaller counties that have not been hit so hard by COVID-19 will be able to apply to the Department of Health for a variance from my order so that they can continue to open some of their operations. But I've got to just at the outset recognize something that all of we Washingtonians have to realize, and that we have not won this fight against this virus. Monday's order will continue a ban on public gatherings. Many businesses will have to remain closed. And that is why I'm extending the order through May 31st. I would like to tell you that we would all be able to make reservations on June 1st.
So this is about where we cut off. Okay, so we are extending the order to May 31st. So he's going to get into the details of that. That's where I think we lost a lot of our stuff. Okay.
But I cannot. We will have to continue to monitor and to assess the data on a daily basis and adapt as conditions allow. So the new normal is not here yet, but I'd like to share some good news and then a consideration. This morning I met with the Department of Health team who've been doing a crackerjack job and modelers from the Institute for Disease Modeling. This morning, they told me that there is continuing evidence that we are suppressing the spread of COVID-19. Transmission rates in central Puget Sound are down. What we're doing is working. Social distancing is working. But the stark answer to the question of lifting restrictions was summarized well in the final graph of the presentation I saw. And the headline there was, cautious, well-informed relaxation will be critical. Why don't you leave that one up there just a minute, Sam? Let's go back to the other slide. I want to show you what this slide means.
They should have panned these slides. They should have panned the camera over to the slides. I don't know why they're not doing that.
You look at the slide from the Institute, what it shows is that the infections have peaked at a certain level. This is for King County. This is just a representative sample of one of our great counties. You'll notice that the black dots represent data points that we've experienced, and the red dots are what we've experienced just for the last couple of weeks. What we have seen is that there appears to be a reduction in the rates of infection, or the R0 number, you've heard about that. In King County, that's good news. But if you look at the gray line on this chart, that gray line, as it starts to go up, represents what would happen to us if we abandon our social distancing efforts today. That is a dangerous increase in fatalities. We cannot allow that to happen. We have to remain committed to make wise decisions. And I think this is one we're making today. So we are laying out a course in this regard to make good data-based decisions of reopening at the right pace. Now, before we get in details of this order, I would like to address the families of over 800 Washingtonians who have lost their lives to this virus. I just want you to know this. You and your loved one will never be a number to us. You're going to be someone that our hearts are with. And the memories will not be washed away by the numbers on the graphs we talk about, because every one of these losses leave the holes in the hearts of their loved ones. And as we go forward and make these very difficult decisions, I hope people will share that view that I have about these families. Now, some people have argued that this threat is exaggerated, that the death rate doesn't warrant a vigorous response. And to those people, I ask to consider for one moment what it is like to lose a loved one to this vicious and somewhat mysterious killer. 6 months ago, we didn't know anything about this virus. But as of this week, as many people have died in the United States as all of the U.S. soldiers we lost in 8 years of combat in Vietnam. We are not wrestling with whether to lean toward the economy or to public health. They are one. They are mutually dependent. As economist Justin Wolfers put it Thursday, there is no economic health without public health.
Amen.
So I'd like to share with you to show how we're going to carefully recover. I'm joined today by Department of Health Secretary John Weisman, as well as Vice Admiral Dr. Raquel Bono, the director of our state's COVID-19 healthcare response. And they will be available for questions a little later. So there are 4 phases to our plan. Start with phase 1. This chart basically, this will be available for your review, of course, showing the 4 phases of our economic recovery plan. Phase 1 is essentially where we are today with some minor changes. And every subsequent phase will obviously require social distancing going forward and appropriate health precautions, including the use of personal protective equipment in a number of industries that are affected. And this includes modifications we have made in the last week around construction activities and selected outdoor activities, such as fishing, hunting, and access to parks. So we are now and will be working with the industries to have protocols available to them by mid-May that will allow retail curbside pickup operations, automobile sales, and car washes. These will be with restrictions. This would allow also drive-in spiritual services with one household per vehicle. And more outdoor activities will start next week. But I do want to reiterate this, and this is a theme of going forward for the next several months. We still have a ban on large gatherings, even gatherings where participants might think they can socially distance. And our office has received several reports of individuals engaged in large outdoor activities and events that are just too dangerous. And I just want to say at this outset, we are now moving forward to another phase of this mission for the state of Washington. And it is even more important now about the individual commitment of Washingtonians to help their community thrive. And it's the individual decisions that all of us will be making in the next weeks and months to come that is really going to determine whether we succeed to prevent huge fatalities in our state. I feel confident about that because Washingtonians have been doing a great job already, but we're going to need to keep it up for some period of time. So phase 2 will allow additional expansions of outdoor recreation activities that are not allowed in phase 1, including camping. Small gatherings of 5 people socially or less could return. I know that will be welcome, as well as new construction and in-store retail purchases. All of these, of course, with appropriate health restrictions. Barbershops and salons will then be able to reopen. Restaurants will reopen with 50% capacity and a table size no larger than 5. Some professional services and offices could open as well, even though telemarketing will remain strongly encouraged. Pet care services, including grooming, could resume. And again, individuals and businesses would still need to follow all of the safety and health guidelines that we will work with industries and business leaders and working people to make sure we do this in a smart, safe, and healthy way. So phase 3, this would expand more gatherings to 50 people or less, including sports activities, and would resume non-essential travel. Restaurants would move up to 75% capacity, and bars at 25% capacity. Gyms and movie theaters could reopen at 50% capacity. Retail, libraries, museums, and government buildings will reopen. Recreational facilities like pools could open at 50% capacity. Nightclubs and entertainment venues will need to wait for the next phase, which is, of course, phase 4. So phase 4 is going to involve resuming the majority of public interactions. Gatherings of more than 50 people will be allowed, but still while practicing social distancing. Now, I have said that our return to normal will still not look the way they did before this virus hit us until we have pharmaceutical interventions such as a vaccine. No one knows when that is going to happen. But it would mean bars, restaurants, and entertainment venues could return to allow the maximum license capacity of their venues. And we could resume unrestricted staffing of work sites, with the exception, again, with physical distancing should remain in place. I also want to note that while we're going through these phases, cities and county jurisdictions by law can take they can put in place more strict restrictions for their jurisdictions, even more restrictive than those in our state Stay Home and Stay Healthy initiative. And that is up to their local decision-making for the public needs and local conditions. Now, I'd like to describe the conditions that will guide us when we decide when it is right to move from one phase to another. The data on public health.
So all those things that he mentioned, all those things, the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, all increase in capacity, basically, of any of these businesses. So they increase capacity, and then most things will not go back to normal until phase 4 is over with. So does this mean that phase 1 starts on May 31st? Or I guess we're going to have to listen more to understand.
Health information will determine when we move from one phase to another. And so I'd like to discuss those dials, if I may. What you see before you is a selection of what we call the dials that will judge when we can make these decisions. The first dial basically is the
Thanks for not panning over to those dials. Jeez.
infection disease status itself. And that is obviously the most important of the metrics that we will look at. And under that metric, we have numerous pieces of information. We make our decisions based on dozens of data points in determining the status of the virus. We look at, just for instance, we look at the hospital rates of hospitalization per day with people with COVID-like illness. We look at the deaths per day, obviously. We look at the long-term care facilities and how they've been impacted with COVID. We look at the models, just one of which I showed you today. We look at several models that project where we're going in the immediate future. We look at the percentage of positive tests. And I just wanted to show you, just to get a flavor of the wealth of data we have. The chart we have up on the screen right now is a screenshot of 12 graphs amongst many that we look at. And these are all available on our website to look at the specific data. Second thing we look at, and of course I'm looking at, if I can see this, if you can bring this closer, Sam, because, oh, here we go. We got this right behind me, I think. We'll have in just a moment. The second is the testing capacity and availability. Now, this is critical to our efforts because we are making a shift in strategies. We're moving from the dull instrument of social distancing as our primary weapon against this virus to depending on testing capacity to find people who are affected by this virus, and then move to find a way to take care of them and to isolate them. And central to that is our testing capability. As you know, this has been way more limited than we would want. We have been limited to be doing maybe 4,000 tests a day. We want to get several times that to be able to make sure everyone who needs a test can get a test very quickly. We hope that that will ramp up shortly. We have been promised, for instance, 1 million swabs that are used in this test by the federal government. We hope that that promise will be fulfilled so we can increase our testing. But that dial needs to be much higher than it is today for us to be able to move into the next phase of this battle. The next dial we look at is our case and contact investigation capability. After we test for a person, we'll need to investigate their contacts to see if people they have contacted need a test, and make sure that we isolate the people that in fact are tested positive so they do not transmit the disease.
Okay, we've heard most of this. What I'm going to do is escape out of this. We're going to go to... Hang on one sec. Seattle Times. Okay, so here is some of the things that he talked about. Okay, so this guy says, Governor Jay Inslee Friday, he would extend Washington's stay-at-home order through May 31st, but is seeking ways for some businesses to open before then as he and state officials try to keep the new coronavirus from roaring back. If we stick together for a while longer, we don't lose the gains we've already made, Inslee said, acknowledging that restrictions on daily life had been challenging for many Washingtonians. It's so frustrating. We don't want to do this twice. Inslee said Washington's businesses would reopen in 4 phases, with some types of businesses potentially getting the okay to open before May 31st. Okay. Examples would be allowing retail stores to do curbside pickup, as well as letting automobiles sales and car washes to resume business with some restrictions. The governor also intends to allow drive-in spiritual services. The order had been set to expire at the end of the day on May 4th, put in place March 23rd. Inslee had already extended the restrictions once as state officials tried to dampen the outbreak of COVID-19 that has killed more than 800 Washingtonians and sickened thousands. Each phase for reopening will take at least 3 weeks. Phase 1, 3 weeks. Then phase 2. Okay. Each phase for reopening will take at least 3 weeks, an amount of time long enough for Governor Inslee, the governor said, to let officials to see if the measures were working sufficiently. The governor had earlier announced he wouldn't yet lift the stay-at-home order, saying that public health data, such as the number of daily confirmed cases and the transmission rate of the virus in King County, have not yet been favorable enough. Yet, as pressure has grown, Inslee has opened up some activities in the past week. He has allowed some construction projects and medical procedures to resume, reopened some state lands for recreation, and given the go-ahead for hunting and fishing. 10 largely rural counties that have not been as heavily affected by the outbreak will be allowed to apply for a variance with the Department of Health to move to the second phase and reopen businesses sooner than other counties. The announcement comes as Washington in recent days has seen 150 to 300 daily confirmed new cases of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the state's economy has taken a hard hit as thousands of businesses closed under the stay-at-home order, and more than 1 in 5 workers have filed for unemployment. Demonstrators, among them Republican lawmakers, have rallied against the governor's stay-at-home order. Protesters on Friday gathered at the state capitol. One carried a sign that read, "Fear is the real virus." Okay, so it keeps going on here. So it sounds like I still don't know what this really means because you have the stay-at-home order has been extended. So that means that like schools, public, he did say public gatherings of more than 5 people. I need a better summary than this. We need a better summary than this. All right, here's Q13 Fox. Out of where? Oh, I don't know. Four-phase plan. On Monday, he's issuing the new extension of our stay home, stay healthy. Oh, well, because Monday's the day that it was supposed to be over. Governor said there will be at least 3 weeks in between each phase to monitor effects. 10 counties are eligible to apply to the Department of Health for more rapid reopening based on low case numbers. Okay. And having PPE and medical capacity. According to the governor's office, the 10 counties are Columbia, Garfield, Jefferson, Lincoln, Pend Oreille, Skamania, Wahkiakum, Kittitas. Sorry if I screwed that up. Okay, Ferry, Grays Harbor. Okay. Oh, and here's the thing that we weren't able to see. Okay, we're gonna open this in a new tab. Okay. Okay, we'll look at that in a sec. But it looks like Inslee said while more outdoor activities will start next week, the ban on large gatherings will remain in effect. The next phase would allow camping and new construction, as well as in-store retail purchases with restrictions. Barbershops and salons could also reopen at that time, and restaurants could reopen at half capacity, and table sizes limited to 5. The third phase would expand group gatherings to 50 or less, including sports activities, and would allow restaurants to increase capacity to 75%. Gyms and movie theaters could reopen at half capacity, but nightclubs and entertainment venues will still remain closed during this phase. During the last phase, the most public interactions would resume. The social distancing with bars, restaurants, and entertainment and sporting venues return to their maximum capacity. Okay. Okay, so school buildings will remain closed. Washington Governor Jay Inslee and State School Superintendent Chris Riddle announced April 6th that due to the... Oh, this is April 6th. Okay. For the rest of the school year. Okay, so it just still doesn't... we still don't know about some other things, but I think that's going to do it for me. Thanks a lot for watching. I know this was a... we got screwed up with the media. I think we started watching the actual video after it screwed up. And I had tried to find something else while it had screwed up. So anyway, I wish they wouldn't screw up. I wish they would pan over to actually show his charts and graphs as well to see what the heck's going on. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I will definitely have some better streams for you as I continue to try to make this work. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.